Welcome to the Lost and Found podcast. I'm your host, Amanda. Join me each week as I rediscover my life's meaning, my passions, and my place in this world after leaving behind the only dream I've ever known. If you are dealing with self-loss, identity changes, career transitions, or you are still trying to figure out your life's purpose, then you're not alone. Join me. Wanderers are always welcome. Welcome back, everyone, to the Lost and Found podcast. This is your host, Amanda. I am so excited. We've got a brand new episode here today for you. I am chatting with Karen Blaine. She is a published author and certified hypnotherapist that specializes in conversational hypnotherapy. She is the founder of her very own business, Eternal Empath, and she spends her time helping individuals transform their sensitivity into strength through intuitive guidance and help them live authentic lives. So everybody, please help me welcome Karen Blaine.
Thank you.
So happy to have you here.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we were chatting a little bit before we got started, and I've been learning already so many great things from you from our previous chat. So this is so much fun. For anybody that may not have had the chance to hear one of your other interviews or had the chance to maybe read some of your books, would you mind giving us a bit of a background about who you are and the work that you're doing right now in the healing and wellness spaces and how you got to where you are now?
Yes. So when I was born, we'll take it all the way back. I think that over time, I realized fast by the time I was 6 years old that I felt like I didn't fit in with others. I I was always a little bit of a nonconformist, but that was beside the point. I felt like everyone didn't wasn't quite as introspective as I was, and I was different than them, and I so it made me feel bad about myself, and the world seemed to reinforce that. And as I went on, it didn't help a lot. I still managed to stay in a good position. But then when I was 21, I started to think about choices early and forks in the road. And so by the time I was 21, I had had a boyfriend, but he was a part of that negativity, part of putting me down, part of that extra feeling of you are not good enough, right? And I wanted someone who brought me up, who made me feel like I was and helped me to feel like I am worthy. And so I got married to my husband, and he definitely was safe, and he was secure, and he was a good person. And I I felt that I would be safe in his hands, if you understand what I mean by that.
Yes, that's so important. I've definitely dated people that made me feel something similarly, and it wasn't a good place to be. So, congratulations to you on finding the right person who could help you and does support you. That's incredible.
Well, the amazing thing is that I went for it. I had a choice, and I said to myself, "Healthy, not healthy." And that's really where I went. And I said, "If I'm gonna do something for my life and ignore everyone else, I'm gonna go with healthy." And that's I chose it somehow.
You said you met your now husband in your 20s. Yeah. Okay, so being a 20-year-old and actually choosing the healthy choice, going down the right path. That's good.
My childhood wasn't, easy. So I knew what feeling bad was, and I knew what feeling good was. So I had it by then. I had the differences.
Sure. Were you an author at that point as well, or did that come
Oh,
later?
I've written all my life, but the only time I had the self confidence to start really writing was, let's say, I had 4 kids, and then for 25 years, my life stopped obviously for them. But I still wrote occasionally, time to time. And I was a speech communication major in college, which is interesting. Yeah. And I'm an introvert, so it's quite interesting. But about 10 years ago was when I started to write very, a lot.
You were talking about being an empath, that's right. And I'm sure it probably felt complicated sometimes too if you were empathic but introverted, so you could have all these big feelings and big sensations all the time, but finding the right way to protect how you handle and process information as an introvert and then also get rid
Right.
of things. It's intense, right?
It's so hard. And I feel like I've gone to therapy a lot, but I don't really feel like they quite get it, if I'm allowed to say that. I mean, some therapists do, some do. But when you're really deep and you're really introspective and you're really intense, it's like they're like, okay, yeah, I got that. And I quite don't feel like, I feel like then I have to write my books. My books are my own form, like yours are, to get myself out in words.
While you were in therapy, is that where you got the ideas for your books? And if not, then would you mind explaining to the listeners, like, a kinda top of line, I believe you've written 4, is that correct? 7, my goodness, okay. Well, then, yes, please give us a little bit of a background on your books, and then we can definitely dive into the one that I read, which is You Are Not Alone.
I'm so happy you read that. Yeah, my books have all kind of been an affirmation for, well, they were, I guess the word is affirmation, but when I read Who Are You, which was the second book, I said to myself, oh, there's no, I realized that the Myers-Briggs, the Carl Jung in Who Are You, Carl Jung started it, and then the Myers-Briggs ladies, a mother and daughter, continued it with the 16 types. And I went ahead and did the quiz, which I have in my second book, Who Are You? I started to realize I was an INFJ, which means introspective and introverted. And 1% of the population is an INFJ. Reading that was like kind of a way of me to say, oh, wow, I get it. Okay. Okay. So I am an empath because when I walk in a room, I feel feelings of others. And I feel like that makes me overwhelmed at times. But when I start to feel too overwhelmed, I'll go in the bathroom or somewhere and I'll recalibrate. And I've learned how.
Yeah, and is that, a technique that you trained yourself on when you started learning, like, the hypnotherapy stuff as well,
Yes,
or
a good therapist. She taught me about how to use my colors, my scents, all the things that overwhelm me, and to use them when I'm going to these kind of public events and make myself more comfortable. And that was really good. So, yeah, I've taken a little bit from a lot of the therapists.
excellent, okay. Tell me a little bit more. I'm curious, on my show, I've also talked a bit about my dreams and why I keep having reoccurring ones, and I don't know. I've asked my grandmother because she's super into the spiritual world and getting her dreams interpreted and things like that, and I noticed you had a book called Dreamscapes. Could you tell us a little bit about that book and how you have used the Dreamscapes information or the data that you found in your research when you were writing it to help your current clients?
Absolutely. I take we mostly dreams are subconscious. But what we do is we the subconscious from the dream, especially if they're what you said, repetitive. We've had them a lot. And I try to make them conscious so that they become what is the conscious interpretation of the subconscious dream? Because when it's subconscious, it's a little bit more difficult. So, in the conscious realm, we can understand, why is this happening? Am I afraid I'm going to lose my job? Am I afraid I'm going to lose my relationship? Why am I feeling so insecure at the moment that I keep having this? And a lot of times things are on the negative side. Death, a lot of people dream about the people they love who have passed a lot. And a lot of times that's positive because they're just dreaming that their loved one is saying they're okay and they see them. So then that we I can keep that as a subconscious or conscious, but that's about feeling that love as presence and a warmth. I still talk to my dad even though he's passed every day.
I understand that for one of my grandfathers that had passed away, there's moments where I personally don't always feel like I identify as being religious, but I definitely believe that there's a spiritual realm to the world. And I think they can hear you, even if you're not actually talking to them. And if it helps you feel better, I can't knock it and tell people it's a silly thing to do because that's what I do too. And I'm curious, you started as a writer. You were always an artist in some way and creative since you were young, and then you started writing your books. What led you to doing conversational hypnotherapy, and how does that differ from other types of hypnotherapy?
What I started to realize was in conversational hypnotherapy, it's really a matter of getting that sense of silence, that sense of you sit in a chair, say a nice loungy chair with a warm blanket, maybe even one of those weighted blankets, and just put around you. And you go down like in hypnotherapy, if you've had it, you start to really relax and you're going into more of that centeredness. That's what I call it. It is centeredness. And so you're much more willing to accept what we're talking about. And before we go into conversational hypnotherapy, we have a talk. The talk is, what do you want to learn? What do you want to grow? What do you want to not, take away from your life? And this is how we're going to try to go about it. So once we're in that conversational hypnotherapy, that's when I talk about maybe going up a staircase in the middle of the ocean and trying to reach the top to get where you want to be. But I like conversational hypnotherapy because I like them to understand what it is they've gone through and me to understand where they are. I don't want it to be a complete, I don't remember anything. I don't. So that's why I really love conversational hypnotherapy. It kind of gives more of a depth to an analysis, but it isn't strictly hypnotherapy.
Okay. I like that. It feels like that's a more approachable way because I'm sure you've had some people with a little bit of animosity about what you do, or they don't believe in it or think that it's actually helpful. But it sounds like you're at least taking an opportunity to ease somebody into it. And at least the bare minimum, I think, for healing, people have to be at least willing to try it, or they have to be open to the fact that they want to change or they want to improve their life in some way. And at least if you're open, this could work for you. You never know until you give it a chance.
Absolutely, and that's a big part of it is just saying, "I'm going to relax now, but I'm not going under, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. It's all okay. In fact, it's all good."
Mhm. How has providing hypnotherapy for others or for your clients changed your life or the way that you operate?
Well, I don't teach it anymore. I don't practice. My books have taken all my time, so I feel really proud of them. Oh, each of them, they're different, but they have a couple of similar themes, but they're different. I'm really proud of, like I said, proud of them, and I'm trying to get them out there. I really think this is my personal belief, and so I mean it. I want to help others with my books. It's not about it's not about money. It's not about me. It's just about trying to reach somebody and maybe helping them. And if that sounds a little bit naive, so be it.
I don't think that's naive at all. I think that I've seen a lot of people talk about if you're doing what you love and it impacts one person, then you succeeded. If it helps somebody else once, then you've made momentum and you've pushed the ball forward. You've paid it forward into the universe in some way, and that still matters, right? Let's talk about You Are Not Alone. And this is a book where you focus on the importance of self love and the comforting realization that we are not alone in our own struggles. And so I was curious if you could give us kind of a background about why you wanted to write this book in particular. And then we can kind of go through how you use your subconscious to help you heal and you build those resilience tips that you wrote about.
Hmm. Well, what made me write it was first off, it was the death of my best friend. I bad thing. And I mean, it was a hard thing, let's just say. It got me writing every time there's a heavy duty thing, I start writing. Even songs. I did that with songs. So, yeah, I just tend to immediately go to paper and pen. And I started to write because I know she felt alone. I would have helped her, but she didn't share with me. But anyway, that's beside the point. I can feel alone too. I think many of us can feel alone. And the point is that self love can keep us from feeling alone. So even if we are alone, in that aloneness is love if we love ourselves enough. And that's what I was saying. So there's a twofold part to the book, You Are Not Alone. It's about loving ourselves and it's about loving others. It really is.
Yeah, and by sharing that love with someone else or sharing that vulnerable moment with someone else, you actually open yourself up to have that support that you think you're missing when you're feeling isolated, you know? I'd love to talk a little bit about how the act of sharing ourselves with others, will prevent that isolation from happening.
Well, I believe that it's once we go to gratitude, which is the key. If we wake up in the morning and we say, I'm breathing and we're healthy and we're okay, then there's a huge part of that that says, I'm grateful for the day. And if we can stay there for a minute, then we can say, now how can I give to others? And by doing that, for me, it's in my books. And it's also been talking, and it's also as an empath. I have actually stopped and tried to help people along my pathway because I feel what's going on. I can be at the market and I can feel what's going on, and it can be a curse or it can be a blessing. I choose to make it a blessing.
What about your personal gratitude practices? Do you have any particular rituals that have helped you build up that kind of resilience to the stress?
Yes. For me, I can get down, and then if I'm feeling down, this is the important one. I'll try to reframe the picture. So let's start at the picture as the beginning. And you've got a story. That story maybe made you feel bad. So you're like sitting there, maybe in your car, maybe in your house, and you're like, I'm not sure that went well. I didn't do this right. I didn't give enough. I don't know what I should have done. So I say you stop. You use a camera, your own camera in your head, and you stop it and you reframe it from the beginning of the event. And what you do is you say, why am I feeling that way? What what do I do with this information? How can I think differently about this? This is funny. I'll just say it in a minute because it's coming up in my next book, Up in the Air. It's called Up in the Air, and it's about Socrates. And Socrates would answer questions with a question. So it's like, what is it that I might have said instead of thinking this? And so it's a matter of reframing what you just went through in a more positive way, in a way that helps us to feel better about ourselves and what we did do and what we tried to do. And we know it came out of authenticity and we know it came out of goodness. So we believe in that. And that's how we end that reframing, but it's extremely powerful.
How would you suggest going about it? Because I know sometimes you have to, in order to reframe those negative thoughts that you are having, and you need to trigger those systems and neural pathways in your brain to kind of rebuild in a positive manner. Do you address that by tapping into the subconscious, or is there a different way that you would go about doing that? Or is the subconscious not going to help here in this moment?
Oh, it always helps. It always, okay? So you take 5 minutes. That's all you need. And you still yourself. And in You Are Not Alone, you see there's mindfulness, there's affirmations, there's mantras. You can do a few of those. You can just relax. Those 5 minutes, bring yourself down. And then what you do is your subconscious is similar to what I was talking about conversational hypnotherapy. You're deeper now. You're more relaxed. So what you can do is use your subconscious to say, I'm going to break that negative pattern. And I think it's better. I think you can do it in the conscious, but I don't know if it's as deep and as gonna last. I think when you can get to the subconscious, that is your inner voice. And you will feel your inner voice talking to you. And you can listen. And that's when you can start to reframe.
And reframe it that way. If you don't mind providing maybe an example or two, how have you used your subconscious to help yourself heal?
Uh, Many times. I probably usually when I'm like lying down in my most comfortable position, but I will just be like subconscious. I want to hear what you have to say. And I know that sounds funny, maybe to people, but I really listen to that inner voice. And the inner voice is your subconscious. When you can stop the noise, and that's what I call it, all the noise of everything else. You got to stop it for at least 1 minute. It's very hard to do in meditation. You'll see 1 minute is a long time to not think about anything. So when you get to 10 minutes, it's like I'm always impressed. It's kind of like being able to do that is important because then you can tap into your subconscious. It can really help deepen what you're going through so that you become a little bit more aware and maybe change whatever cycle it is. It doesn't have to be reframing, even whatever cycle's going on in your life can help you to get out of it or to learn from it. But you're listening to it, and that's the key.
What was a message that your subconscious recently told you or shared with you? And how did you implement it?
Ah, so many times. If something feels wrong, and I know that maybe isn't subconscious, but it is at this point in my life. If something feels wrong, I don't do it. I just don't. If it feels okay and right, I'm gonna take a chance. I'm gonna do it. But I do listen to my subconscious, and that helps me a lot.
When would you say was maybe the last time you took a risk on something, and how did it turn out?
Allowing my books to be published. I'm a very private person. One of my introversion things, I'm very private. But then I thought about what you just said. It helps one person. It's not a mistake. So I decided, no, you're being stupid and selfish and don't do that. Just go ahead and do it and, buck up a little bit. I was always told to buck up when I was a child. No, that wasn't happening. But to try to do it with these books, which I felt were so important, try to get people to read because they could then understand we are all not alone. And that was so important to me to get across. This book was my most personal book. So for that reason alone, it would be the last book. We're in the middle of another one, but this last book is really me.
Yeah, it showed fully who you are. Yeah, and it's probably why most people have read it or connected to that one too. You said you've written 7. Do you have a favorite that you've written so far?
Probably because it's so me, you are not alone, yeah, but sometimes I go, "Oh my gosh," but I know it was the right thing to do. I do know that, but it is pretty not me, like, being so private, yeah. So
Yeah. Well, that's excellent. I think you should absolutely be proud of yourself for being vulnerable and putting it out there. And I think you're right. You've started your own ripple effect slowly but surely, and it'll get out there and help more and more people, which is so crucial. So, the major theme of the show, kind of like what we discussed earlier before we started recording, is acknowledging moments where you might be freaking out, you're backed into a corner, you're feeling lost, or you're having like a major what do I do now moment and you don't really know which way to turn. And for me, that was a moment in my life where I felt very disconnected from who I was as a person, and I didn't realize that I had banked all of my identity into this one thing, and when that one thing went away, I went away. I didn't know who I was or what I was supposed to do anymore. So I'm curious if you have also had a transformative kind of what now moment in your life that you would be willing to share with the listeners. And then what did you learn from that experience?
so every time I've had that, which has been quite a few, I've said to my I've learned let me tell you what I've learned first, resilience. And resilience is a matter of being authentic because when you're authentic, you're not lying. When you're being disingenuous, when you're trying to get something across, but you're not being truthful within yourself, it doesn't work. It's not going to fly. You'll still stay stuck where you are. That's why authenticity is so important. And besides that, congruence is part of resilience, and that is your thoughts and your emotions are tied together so that when your thoughts and your actions are tied together with your heart and your what you're doing, then you're in congruence, which again is in authenticity, but it's part of resilience. It's all part of that. And so when you're feeling all those feelings, you go to those things. Congruence is such an important word. It's a hard word, but it's an important word. And it helps you to get the strength to say, okay, I screwed that one up, but I am going to go to resilience and I'm going to figure out what can I do to make the situation better for me. And that is when it can work for you.
Is there anything in particular or practical that some of the listeners could do or they could start to implement in their life to build their resilience?
Yeah. Um, Mostly journaling every day. Like most people, before they go to bed, maybe doing a ritual actually. Sometimes doing a little sleep ritual is really important. We're not talking about dreams now because it's also in dreams, but it could be just before you go to sleep, kind of making yourself comfortable, making yourself feel good, and then taking out your pen and paper and writing your own journal. What happened today? What didn't I like? What did I like? How can I make that stronger? How can I become more resilient with each day as I question what it is that I'm doing? And everyone's going to question what they're doing, but what is your inner feeling? Right before you go to sleep, you can go into your subconscious. And so you go to your subconscious and you say, what is it? That inner voice, my gut, my intuition. That's all you have to call it. It's easy. I call it, other things. Just call it your intuition. And that can be enough to start you writing and start you learning. And then besides that, also go back to the exercise. Exercises or meditation, affirmation, mantras, living each day in mindfulness, which means what you're doing is being in mindfulness. Whether you're working in mindfulness. And if you find that the work isn't for you and you're trying as hard as you can in mindfulness, then maybe it's not. As you start to journal that, you might see that. So then that'll give you intuition that you can go somewhere new. But it's a very important those are important concepts to know about yourself.
I'm glad you brought up journaling as an option. Sometimes holding the mirror up to your own self, like going to therapy and doing, typical what people might think of for cognitive behavioral techniques or
Right.
EMDR, if you're not fully ready to tell a stranger what's going on or how you're feeling, sometimes writing it down in your own journal at least gives you the opportunity to get it out of your own head. You can read it, decide, okay, am I really going to believe anything that I just wrote down here, or am I going to find a way to flip the script? And at least I know for me, it helps to write it down if I'm feeling a certain kind of way. And then once it's out, it kind of just like leaves. So that way the heaviness or the thought isn't consuming me or blocking me from doing whatever else I need to do during that day. And
So,
you can always come back to it later. You wrote it down, you can find it. Like,
one thing that's really important are passions. So, as you do passions that you love to do, and it can be anything. It could be cooking, gardening, if you have any kind of backyard. It could be, anything. I think I wrote it at the back of You Are Not Alone. There's so many different things that you can do for passion. And when you are doing your passions, that is a way to enter what it is that you feel mindful about, and then what it is that you can feel optimistic about, and then what it is that your subconscious can help you with.
Would you mind sharing some of your current passions or things that you're doing on the side?
Them. So I started art class. I know it really helped me. I have I have 3 dogs now. I had 5, but I have 3 now. And I did a bronze of one of my dogs. And I thought I was a good artist, but it turned out so well, and I just was so proud of it, and I was proud of the process because I was able to really get out of my head and get into the process. That's what it is. When you're doing some passions, you're getting out of your head and the negativity and getting into the process of what you're doing. So for me, art was huge. For me, I started really singing and playing my guitar a lot. And I have grandchildren, 7, and I've been teaching them the guitar, which has been fun. And so just, things that are important to me take me out of myself.
Right. It sounds like if you can find something that's hands-on in a way, it seems to channel your
Yes.
passion through your passion, I guess, helps you channel whatever skill or thoughts or emotions you were dealing with and sharing good ones, bad ones, everything kind of in between. And I like that you mentioned your grandchildren because you're also now, it sounds like you're leading by example. You're showing them that you can live a life where you can have a career, you can be a writer, you can be a successful person, you can be a stay-at-home mom, you can be a musician, you can be an artist. Whatever it is that you love, you should be able to lean into, and that will help you feel more connected to who you are.
Well, yeah, it is exciting. Well, I mean, look what you're doing. I hate to turn it on you, but what you're doing is so exceptional. You're going after your passion, you're podcasting. Yes.
Yes, it's so scary. I like it a lot. I have no idea if I'm doing it the right way or if it's turning out well. I've been very lucky. I did have a few friends that would give me some tips when I first started out, and then I had a friend who helped me with photography, and she designed some graphics for me so that way I could create social media posts that looked a little more congruent. And thank goodness, because I was just making it up as I went and throwing spaghetti at the wall. But it's been so fun, and probably I don't know if a professional would enjoy what I'm doing here, but it's been incredibly therapeutic and healing for me. Yeah.
I
So,
think you're doing wonderfully. So
oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. My parents do listen, and they at first were a little skeptical, like it's weird. We feel like we're reading your diary when we're not supposed to.
my family too. Like, oh my gosh, think about it. It's like on child traumas, I tried not to put them in at all. I tried.
I think that's great that you keep it focused on you and you don't share anything without their permission or their awareness, Like I think that's good. I know sometimes when families write books about their family history, it can get complicated or sharing things that not everybody has the same perspective on or how that went down. It's always your version, my version and the truth. There's
Well, and then I'm the highly sensitive person, correct? And none of the rest of my siblings are. So they see things very differently, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. I think that's very true. And I let my brother usually tell the stories because he's funnier anyway. But yeah, I feel like I'm probably the sensitive one from the between the two of us.
Are you a highly sensitive person?
I do identify as an empath. When we were talking earlier about your the personality tests, I have taken the Myers Briggs multiple times for
What
various
are you?
jobs and things. I'm an ENTJ.
Okay. So you're a thinker over a fool?
Yes, which is weird because I personally think I'm very empathic and I feel a lot, but I think because my career was so analytical and stats driven, I was always looking for technical things. And so sitting in a technical space was very easy for me because I could apply myself very quickly. But I was always sensitive to critiques, or if somebody made fun of me for being emotional, that always hurt because then it made me feel stupid or weak or less than.
Yes.
Or I would get upset because I would be like, "How did you not know that what you just did hurt this person? Like, how could you not see that?" And then they'd be like, "Well, I don't care." And I'd be like, "Well, why don't you care? Why don't you have this compassion for these things?" And then other people would be like, "Wait, why are you so passionate about something that doesn't really matter?" And I'd be like, "Of course it matters." But It took a very long time until I was probably in my mid-20s where I realized, like, just because somebody else can't understand the emotion that I'm feeling, it doesn't mean that what I'm feeling isn't real or it's not happening actually in that moment. It is happening, but I can't let other people's confusion about who I am and how I process to define me as less than.
Absolutely. You stay centered as to who you are and don't allow that, all the noise.
It's quite noisy. And as an empath, it's constant noise. And the more that I've been leaning into myself and leaning into this passion project, for lack of a better term here, I have started to listen to the voice or the inner intuition. And sometimes it really comes to me and it's very specific and very loud. And then other times it's just like a casual pull, like I don't know what direction I'm going in, but for some reason today I need to turn right and I don't know why, but like here we go.
It's amazing. You have a protection guide as your because being an empath can be you need to have some help uh, in order not to get overwhelmed by it. That's what I was saying. Do you have like a shield, a little a little shield that you can use when you need to get out of it?
I don't know if I have are you talking like a metaphorical one or are you talking about like your colors when you were wearing the purple and stuff?
Your favorite color?
Probably red, actually.
Okay, wow, power color. That's good. Warrior woman. What's your birthday? No, what's your birthday?
I'm a Capricorn, January 16th, so I'm a Capricorn.
Capricorn. You're Capricorn. Got it. Okay. Well, you're earthy, which is so important to being centered. So it's very important that you stay centered because being a Capricorn is a very good sign to be an empath because you will stay on the ground, centered, where some of us will start to fall. And so you've got a lot of good. It's the best way to be. Really a good thing.
Oh, great. Well, that's very thoughtful. I appreciate that and good insight. I don't typically follow a lot of astrology.
It's in my second book, but yeah, it kind of more nuanced so that people who don't follow it at all can see you don't have to follow it all. You don't have to. All of it is just taking a little bit from a little bit, from the MBTI, from the astrology, from Enneagram, from all kinds of things. So it's really, I'll send it to you. I'll send you the book. I love to learn. I love it. It never stops, does it? It's you know what I was the last person I did a podcast with last week. I told her we all have superpowers, right? That's what I consider. That's in that book that I'll send you. I promise you got to give me your address. But anyway, I was telling her superpower is curiosity because a lot of adults as we get older lose that sense of curiosity and curiosity is so important. As long as we're curious, we're learning. Once you say, I don't want to learn that, I don't want to learn anything anymore, what's the point? Curiosity to me is, and if you really know it and understand it and go and start to learn about it, I think that's fantastic. I think you've just learned, used your curiosity in such a profound way.
Yeah. What would you say is your superpower?
Mine is the empath, and yours must be the empath too.
The irony that the thing I used to hate the most about myself, being overly sensitive, turns out to be the most beneficial thing.
There you are. I am proud. Finally, I'm proud. And I don't care who knows.
Well, that's good. It takes some people a very long time to find their own happiness or get to a place where they accept who they are wholeheartedly. And some people never actually get there. So that's incredible that you were able to do that too. And now spend your life continuing to help others do that. It's been such a pleasure chatting with you. I just do have a couple final questions that I usually ask all of my guests before we sign off. What is it that you want out of life, and have you found what you're looking for?
Okay, so what I want out of life is for my books to be read. That may sound simple, but it isn't. To me, it's everything. I think at 7, I'll stop for a while and just see how we work it out and how I work it out and, do different things because they're all different, like I said, but they're all helpful. very helpful in different ways. So that's what my main focus is, at least for the next couple of years. What my whole life is about is love. Everyone's got a different meaning of life, and that's in my next book. But I say it again. But for me, it is love. It's just love, and it doesn't matter what form it takes. It doesn't. It just matters the way you can love and not hate. Love and kindness, respect, those things are everything to me. It may sound trite, but it's everything.
No, it's definitely not. That's very important. And so I'm glad that you have come to a place now where you have found that kind of love and you're able to share it with other people too. That's really important. What would you say has been your greatest achievement?
All my 4 kids.
Yeah, being a badass mom, that's an excellent thing. And how do you define success and what does success look like to you?
So once again, success looks like happiness. If you're happy, doesn't matter what your success is. And I told that to each of my kids. You're happy to me, that means you're successful. Usually it means you love what you do and probably will be good at it.
Right, if you lean into that, yeah. Do what you love and the money will come. So, if you could give yourself advice 10 years ago, what would it be?
Start writing earlier.
Publish the book.
Yeah, and start to like let it go. Stop being so protective and stop being so like I am so what was the word I used? That I don't like to share, like I don't like to talk about myself. Stop being I so closed down. Just allow myself to be open. I wrote Subconsciously Speaking. That was my first book about 9 years ago. And one lady, it just one, 99% of the people can say, oh, that was great. One person can say, wow, what was that all about? And I go to one person, shut right down. So that's me. So the one person said to me, wow, you sure shared about yourself. And immediately I went to, uh-oh, you know, I didn't want to share again, but I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have allowed one person to define me.
I like that. That's excellent advice. And then finally, specifically for any of my listeners who might be feeling lost and they're trying to figure out what to do with their life or to find purpose in their life and pursue a life of purpose, what advice would you give someone who's stuck right now?
So take that journal that we talked about earlier, and what is meaningful to them? Maybe they could write 10 things that were meaningful to them. Then underneath that, they can write 10 things that they're passionate about. Then under that, they can write 10 things that they're grateful for. Among all of those things might be something that is interesting to them to pursue. That might get them out of that hole. I understand that when people are really down, it's hard, but just kind of go through that process can help make them feel like, I see that. I see that. That one rings a bell, and maybe I'll look into it further. All they have to do is go down one rabbit hole, and maybe that will give them that sense of meaning that they're looking for to pull them out a little bit more, and make them feel like, okay, I see this, and I have a superpower. Everyone has a superpower, and we all do. They have to know that in their head, just finding it. They have it.
Right. Yeah. Finding it is the trick, right? And then not shying away from it once you know what it is.
Absolutely. Believing in yourself. That goes back to self love because it's too easy to say, well, that's not going to work for me. Well, no, it will. You are worthy of everything. So you got to believe that. Super important.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's excellent, excellent advice, and something I try and reiterate to myself all the time as well on this show too. You are worth taking a risk and seeing what happens, and you're worth trying to figure out if that idea you've had is going to work out or not. And you'll never know unless you actually try it. So,
Totally.
yeah, no, this has been so much fun, Karen. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your time with us and all of your excellent tips and tricks and things that you've learned through writing all of your books. And congratulations on 7, and you have a new one coming out soon. And do you have a due date when that one might be out?
It should be out within the month. Mhm.
Okay, well, excellent. Congratulations. Maybe we can have you back on another time and we can discuss that
Sure.
with the
Sounds
listeners. Yeah. Well, Karen, let everybody know how they can find you if they would like to read your books or if they want to reach out to you for other interviews or opportunities. What's the best way to get in contact with you?
So for me, it's my email, KLUV, like love, but spelled LUV, SEA, like the ocean, but it's SEA. So it's KLoveSea at gmail.com. That's my email.
Excellent. All right, everybody. I will make sure that Karen's information is added to the show notes. And you know the drill. Like, subscribe, leave us a review. Let us know what you thought of our episode today. Anytime you post about it on social media, I'll be sure to look at those tags and share you and respond as well. You can comment directly on the Spotify episode. You can leave us a review and 5 stars on Apple. We are also up on YouTube, so this will get posted there later as well. And remember, wanderers are always welcome.